What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 new most broken builds in part of Exile's 2 new update, The Dawn of the Hunt. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of each setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on, then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it, and then finally we will go over the passive skill tree, stats, your skill rotations, and even what charm should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. This setup is structured around using Contagion in combination with other chaos skills that will curse and explode enemies in very wide area. Overall, our main spammable skills have quite high mana cost to make it efficient, and that's why we are going to be using a wand like the Life Spring, which leeches percentage of max life when you cast spells. And on top of this, we can also use Asterisk Accuracy Gloves to get instant leech from our critical hits, so then this combination would completely remove the mana from equation, and give us the ability to infinitely spam chaos skills and do massive amounts of damage, without worrying about anything. The main gameplay idea behind our setup is to one-shot most enemies, and as they will die, they will continuously replenish our life and energy shield. However, for bosses, we will need to be careful, as not getting stun-locked is our main priority, and that's why we will use a specific setup, such as putting the spare in our multiple skill slot and much more. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with the Witch and our ascendancy is Lich. Then for the first skill we have Contagion with Unleash and Magnified Effect. Then second we got the Withering Presence with Persistence. Then next we got Essence Jane with Pierce, Swift Affliction and Profanity. Next we have Despair with Decaying Hex and Heightened Curse. Then for the next one we have Blasphemy with the Hex Bloom, Despair and Ritualistic Curse. Then next we got the Frost Bomb with Fast Forward and Spell Cascade. And finally, we're using Shield Charge with the Martial Tempo. Most of this setup is structured around using Contagion with the Essence Jane to delete enemies in split seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration, size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start the spell and minion damage node, and then go like this while taking these 3, so Open Mine, Raw Destruction and Practice Signs. Then next we keep on going to the left and get everything until the spiral into Insanity. Then from here we circle back a little and keep on going until we get Entropy, and then take right. Then when we are here we want to get all of these, so first up take the top side and then the bottom side, and then again keep on going until we get to the actual end and then take right. And when we get to here, then get both of these, so Dark Entries and the Patient Barrier. And now finally from here we can go down and get this whole left side, but usually at this point you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game to make our build functional, and then later on the priority won't really matter that much. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply won't fulfill your attribute requirements for gear and gems, and then after that spend the rest in intelligence. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Soulless form. This offers substantial benefits. It will require careful balancing of life and energy shield values, and investing in energy shield is crucial, as it serves as a buffer that prevents life loss. However, if your energy shield is depleted, the bypass damage will affect your life, which makes it essential to manage both resources effectively. Then second we want the Eternal Life. When we combine this with the Soulless form, it will provide a robust defensive layer, by ensuring that your life remains unchanged as long as you have energy shield remaining. You will be able to take damage without compromising your life. Then third we want the Necromantic Condient. To effectively utilize this node, we need to invest into mana regeneration and max mana, and this will ensure that mana drain does not hinder our overall performance. If done properly, this setup can significantly increase our damage and give this one-shot AoE potential. And lastly we got Blackened Heart. Because of our already higher maximum mana, this will not only enhance the Unholy Might buff, but also support the other Lich mechanics that scale with it. By using this 4-node combo we will do insane damage, but a significant mana drain could become an issue, and that's why you need to follow the specific gear setup. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Life Spring wand with the mana drain, max mana, increased cast speed and the ability to leech percentage of max life whenever we cast a spell. You of course don't have to use this specific weapon if you can't afford it, so in any case try to look for something similar. Then also we got an offhand called the Antler Focus with energy shield, reduced attribute requirements and more levels of all spell skills. Then for helmet we have the Jungle Tiara with energy shield, max life, max energy shield and more to fire resistance. Then for chest we have the Anchorite Garb with evasion and energy shield. Then also more spirit, max life and cold resistance. Then for belt we have the Rawhide belt with increased life flask recovery, max life and fire and lightning resistance. Then for gloves we got the Torn gloves with energy shield, max life and chaos resistance. Then for boots we are using the silk slippers with energy shield, increased movement speed, max mana, max life and lightning resistance. Then for our first ring we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance, max life, more to intelligence and more to cold resistance. While for the second one we have the ruby ring with more to fire resistance, max mana, max life and lightning resistance. And then finally for amulet we have the solar amulet with more to spirit, max life and chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. The core damage of our setup is Chaos, which we can use to deal devastation through toxic and cursed spells. You will need to focus on skills that deal Chaos damage over time, such as the Essence Chain, Contagion and the Malice Burst. And then for defense, we will rely on Energy Shield, so you'll use Life Leech to convert Chaos damage into healing, which will allow you to stay alive during tough encounters. So, we want to start fights by casting Essence Chain that spreads Chaos damage over area, which applies a debuff that makes enemies explode on death, causing AoV damage to nearby enemies as well. We want to maximize its potential by scaling up damage and AoV efficiency. Then also we could use Malice Burst, which is a powerful burst of Chaos energy that can be used to hit multiple enemies at once, and it is perfect for clearing large groups of enemies quickly. And then finally we can finish it off with the Contagion, that spreads Chaos damage over time to the enemies, and it's perfect for applying Chaos damage debuffs to the enemies before they die, which triggers cascading explosions. So this setup is a new combo between the Spark Sorceress and the Cast Comet and the Time Freeze. Our build will rely on high spark crits rather than drowning them in hundreds of different sparks. This way our clear speed will be as good as any other sorceress, but against bosses is the place where we are going to shine. Our crit scaling will reach crazy levels of damage. Even if you don't one-shot the boss, then you will have about 13 to 14 seconds, plus 7 seconds and even 3 more additional seconds of the time stops in your disposal. So if you are ready to destroy enemies and pretty much one-shot the bosses, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with the Sorceress and our ascendancy is the Chronomancer. Then for the first skill we have Time Freeze with the Wind Wave, Second Wind and Unbreakable. Then second we got the Time Snap with no support gems. Then next we got Temporal Rift with Ingenuity. Next we have Temporal Chains with the Cursed Ground, Encumbrance, Expanse, Magnified Effect and Ritualistic Curse. Then for the next one we have the Cast on Critical with the Comet, Spell Echo, Elemental Focus, Inspiration and the Concentrated Effect. Next we got Conductivity with the Heightened Curse and the Focus Curse. Next we got the Soul Offering with the Minion Mastery, Dance Maccabi and the Ablation. Next we have Frost Wall with the Icicle, Cold Mastery, Spell Cascade and the Cold Exposure. Next up we have the Archmage with the Clarity and the Lightning Mastery. And finally we are using the Spark with the Acceleration, Electrocute, Consider Casting, Arcane Surge and the Arcane Tempo. Most of this setup is structured around using our sparks for AoV and temporal chains with Time Freeze for the single target. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node, and then go like this while taking all of these 3, so the raw power, practice science and the critical overload. Then now we keep on going until we get to the sudden escalation. Then from here again we keep going until the top and then take right. And then keep going until we get to the Whispers of the Doom, and then get both these lightning nodes. Then afterwards we keep going while taking pretty much all of these nodes right here, and then our second stop point is at this Eldritch Battery Keystone. And then finally from here we want to get all the way down here while taking these 3, so the True Strike for the Juggler and the Deadly Force. And now from this point and onwards, we can circle back and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then later on, the priority doesn't really matter that much. And then now, let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the footprints in the sand, then second now and again, then next we want the ultimate command, and then finally select the Unbound and Core. So feel free to use this exact same path as we have right here, and don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Siphoning Wand, and for the bonus stats we want to gain damage as extra lightning damage, increase spell damage, more to max mana, more levels to all cold spells, increased mana regen and critical hit chance. Then also we got an offhand called the Expert Plummet Focus with Energy Shield, and for more we want increased spell and lightning damage, max mana, more to intelligence and increased mana regen and critical hit chance to spells. Then also we have the second weapon set, which is very important for our build to fully function. So for the weapon we got the Rattling Scepter with the max mana, reduced attribute requirements and more levels of all minion skills. While for our offhand we got the Crest of the Artura Shield with increased armor and energy shield, more to intelligence, and increased mana regen and cooldown recovery. Then for helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with energy shield, and for more we got max energy shield, max mana, and more to fire and cold resistance. Then for the chest we have the Expert Kate Raiment with energy shield, and for more we want increased mana regen and flask mana recovery, more to spirit and chaos and lightning resistance. Then for the belt we have the Plate Belt with more to armor, max mana and cold and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Expert Sombri Gloves with energy shield, and for more we want max energy shield, max mana, and more to critical damage bonus. Then for boots we're using the Expert Feather Sandals with energy shield, and for more we need increased movement speed, max energy shield and max mana. Then for our first ring we got the Amethyst Ring with the chaos resistance, and for more we want increased lightning damage, max mana, increased cast speed and mana regen. While for the second one we have the Breach Ring with increased cold and lightning damage, max mana, increased cast speed and increased mana regen rate. And then finally for amulet we have the Solar Amulet with more to spirit. And for bonus stats we want max mana, more to spirit and increased mana regen. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our rotation is quite simple, but you will need to get used to it. So what we want to do is first of all start by using the temporal chains. Then we follow that up with the conductivity. Then next use the time freeze in the combination with the soul offering. Then next we also want to activate the frost wall, and then from here just spam the sparks until the boss dies. But mainly for AoE and weak enemies, we basically will turn into a spark build. So just keep spamming sparks and see all of these crazy crits popping off left and right. The only thing you need to keep in mind is the defense. Our build does not have energy shields, so Mind over Matter is a good defensive layer, but should not be heavily relied on in the endgame. While the time freeze has a high cooldown, so feel free to use it 24/7. Then also the second wind for 33% no cooldown. And then the time snap reset will allow you to use the time freeze continuously in the combat. Overall, if you can master these skills, then you will become unkillable with very high DPS output at the same time. This setup is known as the Explosive Shot build, which, as you can see from the gameplay, can blow up and destroy a huge amount of enemies by using the Explosive Shot. However, for our playstyle to work, we will need to use the Tree Dragon Mask. But lucky for us, this headpiece is pretty cheap and easy to acquire by just simply buying it or trading it. This build got a recent shock buff, which means that now by using the specific items, we will convert our ability to ignite with fire damage to now get a shock chance instead. And besides the explosive shot, we also have the shock burst rounds, which will be our main way to deal damage against a single target. It only will work if the target is shocked by releasing a deadly pulse that unleashes one of the craziest DPS skills currently in the game. So if you like the playstyle and you want to use one of the best meta builds that is quite easy to get, then here it is. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Ranger and our ascendancy is the Deadeye. Then for the first skill we have the explosive shot, and for support gems we want to go with the scatter shot, conduction, martial tempo, fire penetration and the rising tempest. Then second we got the shock burst rounds with the concentrated effect, primal armament, lightning infusion, heft and the fresh clip. Then next we got the Herald of the Thunder with the Ice Bite, Innervate, Glaciation and the Lightning Penetration. Next we have the Herald of the Ice with Magnified Effect, Cold Infusion, Cold Penetration and Cold Mastery. Next up we have the Herald of the Ash with just the Fire Mastery. Next we got Wind Dancer with the Blind. Next we have Emergency Reload with Premeditation, Ingenuity and Persistence. And finally for the last two we're using the Overwhelming Presence and Voltaic Mark, with no support gems whatsoever. Most of this build is structured around using the explosive shot to delete enemies in seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node, and then go like this while taking the honed instincts and the vile wounds. Then now keep on going until you get both of these, so escape velocity and the freedom of movement. Then from here we want to continue our way up until this point and then take this maiming strike. Then from here we want to circle back a little, and from this point just go to the left side, and just by following this path you pretty much want to get this entire place. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they are the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements for gear and skill gems, and then after that spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more dexterity. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Gathering Winds, as it increases your movement speed and attack speed, while also giving you a huge evasion boost. Then second we get the Point Blank, which this time will increase your damage to close proximity targets. Then next we want to get the Endless Munitions, as it increases both your clear speed and the single target damage. The third trial is usually pretty hard, but this is definitely worth doing as soon as you can, as this will give you a huge DPS boost. And then finally we want to get the Wind Ward, as especially when you're doing higher tier maps and content, you will need all the damage reduction that you can get. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start we wanna first of all go to the left side and get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this we have even more passives, which in order you unlock them doesn't really matter. So this time it's again up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have bosses. And then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Now let's move over to the next part, which is the gear. And the weapon of our choice is the Expert Forlorn crossbow with a crit and weapon speed. And for the main bonus stats we want to aim for increased physical damage, adds more to physical damage, and loads from 1 to 2 more additional bolts, which is also a big DPS increase. Our crossbow is pretty much the core of this build, so we want to get as high physical DPS and as quick reload speed as possible. Then for the helmet we have the 3 dragons with evasion and energy shield. And for the base extra stats we get increased evasion and energy shield, more to all elemental resistances, and most importantly our fire, cold and lightning damage hits will now contribute to the shock chance. As I said previously, the 3 dragon mask is the main component that holds this build together, and without it this is not very optimized, which means that you want to definitely get this item before starting your endgame journey. Then for the chest we have the Expert Serpent Scale coat with a lot of evasion, and for more we want to get even more evasion, then max life and fire and chaos resistance. Then for belt we have the Ornate belt with reduced charm charges. And for more we want max life, evasion, plus 2 charm slots and fire resistance. Then for the gloves we got the Expert Spin Bracers with the evasion, and for more we need adds to physical damage to attacks, then max life, also increased attack speed and chaos resistance. Then for boots we're using the Expert Lizard Scale boots with increased movement speed, evasion, max life, cold and lightning resistance. And then for our first and second ring we got the same thing, which is the prismatic ring with percentage to all elemental resistances, and for more we got max life, max mana, and fire and cold resistance. And then finally for the amulet we have the Ember amulet which chanked, more to spirit, max life and chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap. This is a starter setup which would be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So we want to start our highest damage rotation by first of all activating the Voltaic Mark for its curse. Then next we use the explosive shot, which will build up the shock, and then afterwards we use the shock burst rounds. After we got that shock, and then from here we can even use the emergency reload for more buffs. And then from this point, if the enemy is still breathing, then we can even use the explosive shot to build up the same shock again. And then finally use the shock burst to repeat the same rotation, and that's about it. Our main objective in the gameplay is to use the explosive shot throughout the fight to annihilate packs of monsters, especially in early game when it's very hard to take a hit on an evasion based character. And then lastly, against bosses, first we use the Voltaic Mark, followed by the explosive shot until the target is shocked, and once shocked we start destroying the boss with the shock burst rounds. This also will freeze the boss, because the 3 Dragon Mask will convert the shock chance of the lightning skills to the freeze chance. And after the shock burst round is almost empty, you then want to use the emergency reload to instantly reset it and get a huge damage boost.